Hi, I'm Jeff from New York. Please like and subscribe.
Young Billionaire, Episode 81, Finding My Prince. Lelaine cried for 3 whole hours that day. When she finally calmed down, Jeff asked Kyle to take care of Isabel. Kyle arranged for Isabel's body to be cremated and her ashes placed in a grave in New York. Jeff accompanied Lelaine to the graveyard for the funeral, and when she saw Isabel's grave, she cried for a long time. In the 5 days since Isabel had passed away, Lelaine had been really depressed. She didn't attend any classes at school, nor did she go to practice with the Stars Chasers. Jeff was worried about her. If she didn't pull herself together soon, she would make herself ill. That morning, he got up early, went out to buy some bread and milk, and then returned to the villa. A few days ago, Lelaine had been refusing to eat at all. Then she began to eat a small amount at night. But now, to Jeff's surprise, she ate a whole bowl of cereal into slices of toast.
Can you take me to band practice?
She asked Jeff after getting dressed properly for the first time in days. In the last few days, Lelaine had been thinking a lot. She wondered what Isabel would say if she could see her right now. She would feel hurt and blame herself for the state Lelaine was in. She wouldn't want her to see her like this. Lelaine's heart felt heavy, but she told herself that she needed to snap out of it as soon as possible. Isabel needed to know that Lelaine would have a good life. Only then would she be able to rest in peace.
Okay.
Jeff agreed in surprise. If Lelaine was able to accept the fact that Isabel was gone, then she would begin to recover. They got a taxi to the door of the music company. The car park was filled with luxury cars, including a BMW and a Mercedes-Benz. Each car was worth at least $500,000. As Jeff and Lelaine arrived, a man and a woman got out of a Porsche. The man wore earrings and a thick chain around his neck. He seemed to be a hip-hop singer. The woman was Lelaine's teammate, Elsa. Grace and Victoria had also arrived and walked over to Elsa.
Is that Lelaine's boyfriend?
Victoria asked.
What is he wearing? No wonder he's with Lelaine. They have the same sense of style.
Did they come by taxi?
Grace asked.
I'm not seeing things, am I? He's at least 20, so he must have a car, right?
Didn't Lelaine say that she came from a little town in the northeast?
Elsa asked.
Some little place in the middle of nowhere. No doubt her tuition pays took all her mom's money. She can't possibly buy a car. I'm surprised she can afford the taxi.
Elsa smiled proudly as she spoke of her friends. They looked at Lelaine, who stood still, watching them with a cold expression. Jeff wanted to go over there and beat them up, but he could guess what Lelaine wanted. After all, they were in the same band and she didn't want to make things worse. Besides, now that she had calmed down, he didn't want to upset her again. In any case, there would be plenty of opportunities in the future, so there was no need to do anything rash. Elsa and the others arrogantly walked through the main entrance. A Mercedes-Benz stopped at the side of the road and a short-haired girl got out of the car. It was Sophia, the girl he had previously met in the practice room. Sophia saw Lelaine and Jeff, and she walked over to meet them.
You came.
Sophia said, looking at Lelaine with a hint of concern.
Let's go in together.
Lelaine said goodbye to Jeff and walked toward the door with her. Jeff stood and watched. He had seen a trace of contempt in Sophia's gaze when she looked at him, combined with the way she looked at Lelaine. It seemed that she didn't think him worthy of her. She looked down on him because she didn't think he could protect Lelaine. He couldn't help but feel bitter. He took a taxi back to school. On the way, he thought about making some changes to help Lelaine. At the very least, he should scare Elsa and the other girls a little and let them know that he wasn't the loser they thought he was. He is much richer than their boyfriends. Although Jeff was not the type of person who liked to brag, he would be willing to do so if it would protect Lelaine.
Didn't they just laugh at me for not having a car and ridicule Lelaine for taking a taxi?
He thought.
Well, make sure they see Lelaine riding in a luxury car. But what kind of car?
A month ago, Jeff had ordered an extremely expensive Ferrari from the New York Auto Exhibition Center. He didn't know why the Ferrari he had ordered hadn't arrived yet. He should call and ask. Two beautiful young women were wandering around the campus of Peston University. One of them was Elisa Cortez, the girl who had been blocking Jeff's way when he drove to the hospital to see Lelaine's mother. That night, Elisa had been cornered by Jasper, who wanted her to agree to a date, No matter what Elisa had said, Jasper hadn't let her leave. She had been so angry, but she hadn't been able to do anything about it. And then an Audi had driven up. A young man had stepped out of the car and had hit the man who had rushed at him. Then, completely unafraid, he had faced down more than 10 people, jumped into the car and sped toward them. Elisa had thought that he would stop the car before he reached them, but he hadn't. He had increased his speed, knocking over the group of men, and continued on toward Jasper. She'd been scared when she had seen the car speeding toward her. She had covered her ears, closed her eyes and screamed out loud. The car had knocked over Jasper while she was standing right next to him, and she had been terrified. But then her nervousness and fear had been replaced by excitement. She had felt like a princess, and the man who had been driving the car had been her prince coming to her rescue. As she recalled his face, she felt extremely happy. From that day onward, she had begun searching for traces of the man within New York City. Eventually, she had discovered that he was probably a student at Peston University, so she had come here to search for him, but she still hadn't found him.
Elisa, are you sure he's a student?
Asked her friend, Remelin Park.
How could one simple student have defeated so many people? It would take some nerve to drive into people like that.
She was exhausted from Elisa dragging her around the city to look for this man.
I had someone check it out for me, and I honestly think he might be a student at Peston University.
Elisa said.
But I don't know any more than that. Please, Remelin, come with me to find out more.
She wasn't sure how to find a prince, but she was looking forward to meeting him.
No, we've been walking for ages, and I'm tired.
Remelin said. She spotted a supermarket.
Look, let's go in there and buy some drinks, and then we can rest for a little while.
Okay.
Elisa agreed and went into the supermarket with Remelin to buy 2 bottles of water. Then they walked to a nearby sports field. As they sipped their drinks, they sat under the shade of a tree, having a rest.
Hey, why haven't I heard anything about the Ferrari I ordered a month ago?
Came a voice from nearby.
Is there a problem?
When Elisa heard the voice, her eyes lit up. A short distance away, her prince was talking on the phone with his face angled slightly away from her.
What's taking so long?
He demanded.
I'll give you an extra $100,000 if you can deliver the car within 10 days. Can you do that?
He paused for a moment.
Okay, I'll transfer the money now, and I expect the car to be delivered as soon as possible.
Elisa and Remelin slowly walked over to Jeff. When Elisa saw his face, she was sure that he was the man who had been driving the car that night. She was elated, but now that Jeff was on the phone, she didn't dare to disturb him. He seemed to be very masculine and impulsive, so she was afraid of offending him. She watched and he made another call.
Mr. Miller, please transfer $100,000 to the New York Auto Exhibition Center.
He said into the phone.
Elisa, is that really the man who saved you that night?
Remelin whispered.
I think maybe there's something wrong with him.
She looked at him over.
He was a university student who was dressed in ordinary clothes and didn't look at all rich, and yet he had just been casually discussing something about $100,000 in a Ferrari. What was wrong with him? Okay, fine. I'll help you meet him.
Remelin said, rolling her eyes, and walked towards Jeff. Jeff ended the call. According to the car dealership, his custom-made Ferrari was being manufactured in Italy, and it would take at least 4 months for all the security tests to be carried out. He was giving them extra money to speed up the production, and he wanted the car delivered to him within 10 days. They had reluctantly agreed, and he'd had the bank transfer the $100,000 to them. Jeff didn't care about the money at all, as long as he could get his Ferrari as quickly as possible. As he was about to leave, he noticed various students all sneering at him. Some of them even shook their heads and glanced at him with a smile when they passed by. They had heard what he had said on the phone. They thought he was crazy. Jeff shook his head and smiled lightly. They can think about what they liked.
Hello, Lamborghini? My custom-made Lamborghini, which cost $3 million, has not been delivered yet.
The girl said, speaking into her phone.
What? 4 months? No. Bring the car to me within 10 days. I'll add $100,000. I must have that car.
Jeff looked at her, speechlessly. The girl was mocking him. He went to walk around her, but she was still blocking his path. When he moved to the left, she moved with him. When he moved to the right, she followed him again. Jeff was very angry. He didn't even know this girl, so why was she teasing him?
Miss, please step aside.
Jeff said, suppressing his anger.
Can't you see I'm on the phone?
The girl glared at Jeff. He tried to walk around her again, but she continued to block his way and wouldn't let him pass.
Mr. Miller, transfer $100,000 to the Lamborghini company.
Remelin said, continuing to mock him. She had only been teasing Jeff to begin with, but then he had dared to glare at her. Now she didn't like him at all. Jeff wasn't as amazing as Elisa said he was. On the contrary, he was truly a loser.
Remelin, stop joking around.
Elisa said, walking over with an embarrassed expression. After Jeff's actions that night, Remelin was playing with fire. Of course, Elisa also didn't want her friend to tease the prince who had saved her. August 2023, top super thanks purchasers. Thank you so much.